trying to have a good life. I had my friends, and we, drank and laughed and told jokes, and
Right.
I had a job, and I worked hard and had a family and was providing for them, so I thought I was doing real well.
Gotcha. Okay. Back to the hospital room, and now you're outside the hospital room. You're in the corridor, and there are what you described almost as shadow beings, indistinct beings beckoning you to come forward or come with them.
Right, and we started walking down the hall of the hospital, and at some point I became aware that the hallway of the hospital was kind of endless, and there weren't any walls or ceiling or lights or anything. It was just, we're moving through a space now without any distinction at all. It's just endless space, and we're walking. And if I were to try and duplicate this part of the journey, I would have to walk maybe 100 miles or something. It
Wow.
just went on and on and on and on for what seemed like not just hours, but days or weeks.
Do you remember during that time considering whether you were you intellectualizing at all, thinking, gee, where am I going? Who are these people? Why am I doing this? Is this such a smart idea? Were you doing any of that sort of thinking? Or
Yeah, and at first, my assumption was that these were people from the hospital who were taking me to surgery.
Right.
And then after a while, it was like, this is not working out. This is definitely not the way to surgery, and I don't think this is even the hospital.
Right.
I don't know what this is. And then I would start to ask them questions, and they would send me, shut up. Don't ask questions. You don't need to, you don't need to know anything. And then from that to, they started talking about me. It was like, he thinks he's so great. Who does he think he is? And stuff like that. And then I would hear people say, shh, don't scare him. Don't scare him off.
Really?
And so, of course, I'm going from very worried to extremely paranoid.
Yes.
What is going on here? And it's getting, as we're walking along, it's getting darker and darker, and pretty soon it's just abject darkness. And there are now a lot of people around me. At first there was a few. Now there's a big crowd in this darkness, and I'm terrified. And I said, I'm not going any further. And they said, you're almost there. And they started to push and pull at me to take me further into this darkness. And I tried to fight back with them, and I felt very capable. I felt very strong. I felt very alive, and I was punching and kicking and hitting.
It was real physical battle.
Yeah, and there was this mob of people all around me, and if they had wanted to annihilate me, they could have just done it, and it would have been over with, but instead they were toying with me, playing with me, tormenting me, and every once in a while someone would, get a piece of my ear and just rip it off, or, someone's finger would be in my eye, and someone would be gnawing on my Achilles tendon, and, I'm trying to hit back and fight back, and it was ultimately hopeless because there were so many of them and one of me, and around all this was this level of noise of their laughter and their insults and their delight at my struggle. And sort of the more I struggled, the more it gave them what I hesitate to call pleasure, but gave them enjoyment out of my pain.
Uh-huh.
And this just went on. People asked me what it felt like, and I said, it felt like what you think it would feel like. It just being beaten and ripped and bitten and clawed and scratched and pushed. And
was there at this point absolute darkness? Could you make these beings out at all in this physical fight?
Just complete darkness. They just felt like people. And what I remember from that is teeth and nails.
Yeah.
And then in the midst of this, they were doing worse things to me, things to humiliate me and tear me down, not just physically, but psychologically. And I don't go there. I don't talk about that stuff.
Why not?
It's too painful.
Was it personal stuff?
Yeah. too personal.
I only in this area have movies as a reference, and a very great man that I interviewed named Father Malachi Martin, who's now passed away. But he was an exorcist, a Catholic priest, and he said that frequently during an exorcism, the kind of personal psychological battle that you're talking about would occur. Very, very personal. Hitting all the hottest buttons that you could possibly hit.
Yeah.
That kind of thing then.
Yep. And eventually I was just so broken physically and emotionally that I was in trying to make myself as small as possible, sort of trying to form a ball on the ground of that place, and people were kicking me, and I was so weakened by all of this and exhausted by all of this that I could barely even moan. And I heard my voice, but I didn't say it, and I don't know how this happened, but I heard what sounded like my voice say, "Pray to God." And I thought to myself, what a stupid idea. I don't believe in God. And in fact, I had probably said my last prayer when I was a teenager, and this was more than 20 years later. So that just wasn't part of who I was or what I did. And then a second time, the same thing, I heard a voice, my voice, say, "Pray to God," and I thought, I don't even know how to pray. I don't know how to ask for help. And part of the person that I was someone who never asked anybody for help. I was an independent, self-sufficient guy who didn't need people. And a third time, pray to God, and I was thinking, what did I say when I was a kid? And I got all confused because I thought that to pray was to recite some memorized verses. That's what I'd done as a child, and I was trying to remember what that was. And without intending it.
Something official.
Yeah, right. Without intending it, some things, I kind of murmured some things, and what it was sort of coming out like was, "Glory, glory, hallelujah, His truth goes marching on, I pledge allegiance
It all got
Father."
mixed up, huh?
What?
All got mixed up.
Yeah, our Father who art in heaven. So, but when I mentioned anything that had to do with God, the people that were around me became inflamed, and they were screaming at me in extremely vulgar, obscene terms that there was no God, nobody could hear me, and they were going to really hurt me now.
Oh.
But what encouraged me to try and remember some phrases that had God in it was the fact that they hated it so much I was finally able to get back at them. And then I noticed that any mention of God actually pushed them away from me and drove them back into that darkness. So I was trying to remember stuff, and it was just all mixed up. And
so at this point, it's cause and effect. In other words, you suddenly discovered you had some little weapon or some way to fight back.
Yeah, it had didn't have anything to do with faith or anything. It was just like, this works. I'm going with it.
Right. Oh yeah, whatever works in a situation like that.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to remember things that have God in them, and they're screaming and yelling at me and backing up further and further in the darkness, and then I realized that the only thing I could hear anymore was me. And I stopped, and I listened, and there was just silence around me. So I began to consider my situation, and I'm too broken and ripped up to crawl. And if I could crawl, where would I go? Because absolutely no sense of how I'd gotten there or where I was. Just darkness. I'm all alone in this place, and so I'm starting to think about my situation and what, since I didn't have any religious background at that time, what I thought had happened to me was that somehow I had gone down the sewer pipe of the universe into the cesspool, and this is where the human garbage goes.
Could you walk around? You were in utter darkness. Could you? I think a natural thing for a human would be to try and define the boundaries of where they were. If you really thought you were alone, you'd try to sort of walk up and.
I couldn't get up. I couldn't even crawl.
So you were in the fetal position.
Yeah.
All right.
And I was all broken and torn, and I thought about my life, and it all seemed so sad because I had wanted to be this great artist, and instead I'd been a mediocre artist at a little, nothing university in the Midwest, and I wasn't a big shot. And I thought about how I'd failed as a father and as a husband and as a son to my parents. And when I thought over my life, it all seemed so